Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Back home from vacation, coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast, holding it down for us while I was away for a bit. Obviously managed to stay along here with you guys. We have a Tuesday night slate. I am told jet lag is still creeping in, but it's a little 5-gamer here on Tuesday night in the NBA. We've got a couple game videos up for you and our player props, so make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us each and every weekday of this regular season. Also head to thelines.com. Nate and company have their great written content on there, player props, game lines, and the like all season long for you guys, and our great odds finder tool on there where you can go ahead and make sure that you're shopping those lines and player props across U.S. sportsbooks to the best of your ability. Nate, let's go ahead and jump into this little 5-game slate and then kick things off with this game video, Knicks and Jazz.
Yeah, the first game, there is a ton of injury news to monitor. Memphis plus 3.5 at the Pels. Desmond Bane doubtful. Jaren Jackson Jr. expected to make his debut. Zion is the game time decision for New Orleans, so can't make any conclusions about that until we figure out what's going on there. Clippers on a back-to-back are plus 7 at Dallas. Dallas struggled on that East Coast road trip. They're coming back home. The Knicks are plus 5 now at the Jazz. It was plus 4 a minute ago, but Fire Tibbs gaining some steam along with that line for Utah at home. The Nets are plus 2 at the Kings. We're going to talk about that game in a separate video. That's fluctuated between 2 and 3. Total is at 226.5. That's been rising. And then the Spurs plus 8.5 at the Blazers. Spurs on a back-to-back after getting waxed in Golden State there. So the Knicks, 145 points to the Oklahoma City Thunder on Sunday. Seems like a last straw kind of moment. I mean, that comes after getting trucked by Brooklyn, scoring just 85 points against the team that opened the season as the worst defense in the league, and allowing the Celtics to hit a franchise record 27 threes and basically clown all over you with every single player to check in, hit a three. Apparently 20 of OKC's 31 attempts were tracked as wide open on Sunday. They scored 145 points. This is a team that came in 29th in three-point percentage. Like, nobody is really a sniper on that team. And then they shot 54% against the Knicks. It's a Tom Thibodeau team. If you're not playing defense, I don't know how they're going to pull out wins here. Their offense is improved. That's mostly due to just Jalen Brunson being a stabilizing force. But Tibbs is going to have a short leash for any guys that mess up on defense. We saw RJ Barrett benched on Sunday. It's just like, who knows what could happen here in Utah if they get off to a rough start. And Utah is just like, as we know, the most surprising team in the NBA, especially at home. They're 5-0. They're 4-1 against the spread. They are both third in offensive and defensive efficiency at home. That's some straight up Suns shit. And they're back home now after 6 of their last 7 were on the road. These home wins aren't cupcakes either, right? The back-to-back over Memphis, like getting that team twice in a row and opening with a blowout over Denver. You look at 5th in points and assists, 4th in three-pointers, which is something, again, we have to come back to here because the Knicks are really struggling to guard the three-point line right now. And the Jazz do have snipers. They have big men who are snipers as well, which is a real problem when you get Julius Randle and company in rotation out there. Mitch Robinson is a game-time decision with that knee. I don't think he's a good matchup defensively for this Jazz team with Olynyk and Markkanen out there. And then the Jazz, they shut down the three-point line. They're allowing the fewest threes per game. Knicks are not particularly adept at that end of the floor. They're awful offensively on the road, 29th in offensive efficiency. And they've been going over pretty consistently at home here, including that massive combined total. Yeah, I mean, they're dead last in fourth quarter scoring, 29th in offensive efficiency on the road. Jazz are shutting that down. So I actually lean under here. In general, I think the Knicks, if they are playing for Tibbs' job or if they do care, will come out with a bit of a renewed effort on the defensive end. I don't really see them winning this game, though. Utah is a very tough place to play. Knicks have lost 7 of their last 8 in Utah, which, for what it's worth, it's a completely different team at this point, but it's still a tough, loud arena. And So I think if you want to tease the Jazz back down to -1, it could even grow more in terms of the Jazz favor here. And then you take under 234. I don't hate that.
It's 234. I mean, that's 230 feels kind of crazy right now. I'm not going to really touch the total. I would definitely lean under. It's not really where I'm starting in this game, just because of the fact that the Knicks have been so bad on the road, man. I mean, there is something to the fact that they've been so much worse on offense on the road, and I think that's probably a pretty big part of all of this. But their defense isn't exactly like better, right? Like it's a little bit better in certain areas, but it's really the same that it was last year. And that offense, like, I don't know, is it really better with Jalen? I think what we were all hoping for when we got Jalen, and by we I mean the proverbial Knicks fan, was a point guard, and we thought that at the very beginning of the season, that maybe that was the case. And I told you right after they were 3-1, and they had just beaten Charlotte, Orlando, and Detroit, and you know I told you, like, let's be easy. They're coming into this game against the Bucks, and they were something like 8.5, 7.5 point dogs, and we were like, well, look, they're 3-1, and look at how much better they are with Jalen. And it was like, this is all a hoax, man. And the next X amount of games just really told us that, because it's a tale of two opponents. Who are the Knicks playing? Are they playing anybody with any kind of playoff hopes and aspirations, or are they playing a team like Charlotte, who's down 3 or 4 of their key guys, or a team like Detroit, who's still just on the rise, a team like Orlando, who's excited to be winning games at home, even if they can't win on the there's nobody there. So when they play the Bucks, when they play, obviously that Grizzlies game at home to start was also somewhat promising, because they hung with them, they put up the points, they took it to overtime, but really it was all just, like I said, it was all just a fluke. It was all a hoax. It's when they're playing teams that are better than 500 or 500 or better, and I'm not even including the Nets in that one, where they got waxed by the Nets there, who are still under 500, and I'm including Philly, who's at 500, and that's the one team that they beat, and they didn't have Embiid or Harden in that game, right? So they haven't played anybody. That's really what it is. They're 1-5. They're losing those games by 9 points a game when they're underdogs, because they're playing a team better than them. 3-4 against the spread, 2-5 straight up, losing those games by an average of almost 8 points a game, failing to cover in those games where they're dogs by almost 4 or almost 5 points a game. So it's not really promising for them right now. I've been on the fire Tibbs bandwagon since before they got Jalen, just because I think he's reached the ceiling with this team, and it's been his calling card and the way that things work. The team sort of, it's not that they even stop listening to him. There's definitely no let's play for Tibbs kind of mantras going on in that Knicks locker room. I don't know what the chemistry situation is. I think it's it's not like it's the same situation as Minnesota, where all of their issues, they were like such a great vibes team last year. And they just lost a bunch of their key players on the wing. They're not the same vibes team anymore. It's not like that with them, but there's no heart to this team. It's not like Jalen Brunson is the leader. RJ Barrett just got benched in a year that he's playing better than he ever has offensively. And everything that they're doing is still just Tibbs ball, man. They can score in the paint. They're getting a lot of rebounds. They're not getting that many second chance points off of those rebounds, which is the one area of this game that you and I were scared to sort of bet on against the Knicks. Is they rebound, and the Jazz, they just don't, and they give up a lot of points in the paint, which is where the Knicks score. The Knicks are, again, in the top 20-ish in terms of their three-pointers that they're shooting, the amount that they're doing it. Last year we saw sort of an influx of that. It's dropped down a little bit this year in how often they're shooting the three, which should only help them against the Jazz, who, like you said, are basically the best 3-point defense in the league. Top 3 in made, three-pointers made, attempted, and percentage from their opponents this year, which is huge. So, that's another reason. They've got all the wing players that the Wolves need and are sorely missing this year on their team, which is why they're playing so well around that wing, defense and offensively. You talk about them sharing the ball. The Knicks, that's my thing, is like Jalen came in, he's a point guard, and they're still in the bottom 10, bottom 8 or so in terms of assists per game, assist percentage, and all that kind of stuff for the Knicks. They're not moving the ball at all. And if you're going to keep them from being able to move the ball, and they have to play that ISO ball, which is where the majority of their points come from, unassisted 2-pointers, unassisted 3-pointers, then you're feeling good about it. And that's going to put a huge ceiling on their ability to score, which 105 points a game on the road versus 121 a game at home right now. It says everything you need to know. The way that they're shooting, the pace that they're playing at, everything is just much faster and better, and at least more efficient at home, even if it's not good, because their defense is still atrocious. So there's not much to like about this team, and I'm not going to feel like there's much to bet on for them until they really don't have Tibbs in the driver's seat anymore, because we know what this team is when he's there, and it's just not better than 500.
Yeah, and if you're counting on Jalen to roast this Jazz team like he did when he was with the Mavericks, I mean, it's a completely different defense at this point, right? He's kind of that pick and roll maven a la Chris Paul who can really expose Rudy Gobert by putting him in those actions. And I don't think he's going to suddenly resurrect the Knicks offense here. I think the discrepancy in 3-point offense is too much, but and also the more I think about it, the better the under kind of looks, just because the Jazz, the Knicks going to get those second chance points. The Jazz struggle to rebound. That's the one thing with those lineups with Markkanen and Olynyk, that they're going to struggle to box out, but the Knicks are not highly efficient on the first or the second chance. And then the Jazz also 25th in free throw attempts. So there's some offensive regression, I think, coming here. And even in those kind of great performances to open at home, the Jazz have gone under in 3 of their 5 home games. The exceptions being that second matchup with Memphis, with Ja, who's just, and Bane, who are just buckets, and then the Lakers, who play at the fastest pace in the league right now and are pretty reliable going over. So I do really like that as a tease here, whether you want it for this game or another one. But I think, if you get the Jazz down -2, -1, whatever it closes at, along with that under, you should feel pretty good.
Well, yeah, I'm going to use your logic, but I'm just going to do it slightly differently. I feel more comfortable about under 230 than I do about 4.5, 5 points. So I might as well just hit a moneyline Jazz under bet there, and probably get a little bit better on my money there, just because I know that it's gone up actually since we were talking about it in terms of the Jazz were closer to 4 to open. They're at -5. It's still the money line at -205 for them. So you go ahead and parlay that with the under, and you're definitely looking at closer to 1.5 to 1 on your money there in your return. So I'd probably rather go that way, just because when I saw all the stats I saw before I even looked at the total, and I was looking at this game and then I looked at the total, my thought was this is going to be at 225. And he was at 230.5 right when I saw it. So I think that's what I feel. I know I opened this by saying I lean Jazz, but as that spread keeps creeping up, and we just saw, that 280 point total against the Thunder that the Knicks had in regulation. So I think that's that's blowing this out of proportion a little bit. That game was in New York as well, so there was obviously reason to like a little bit more, a few more points when they're playing in New York.
And then we get to this game, Nets +2 at Kings, total at 226.5. It's crept up a little bit. You got to think under with the Jacques Vaughn Nets here, but you got to think over with the Kings at home. So for me, the total is just like wait and see and gather more information for the next time these teams play. Because, totally nailed it last week when the Nets were playing the Knicks that this is going way under. Since Jacques Vaughn took over, their pace is down. It was down 7 possessions at that point. It's crept up a little bit to 94 now. Their pace. Defensive rating is 10 points better than last year. 17 points better per 100 possessions than it was under Steve Nash. But the offense is a concern. It's Kevin Durant. It's Kevin Durant and 4 guys playing off Kevin Durant because Kyrie is still not eligible to play, and predictably the Nets are -7 net per 100 with KD off the floor. They're a raw +75 with him on the floor in their last 7 here. And they had gone under in 7 straight, including the last game with Nash, before they went over in a loss to the Lakers. And losing to the Lakers definitely raises some red flags that the honeymoon might be over, right? With Jock, with new coaching blood, with Kyrie out of the lineup, and that kind of galvanizing everybody to give effort on both ends of the floor. And now you're just smack in the middle of a road trip. You're in your 3rd game in 4 nights after playing back-to-back in LA, and you got to go to Portland right after this to end that road trip. I don't see the Nets having, being emotionally that high for this game. The last time they were in Sacramento was actually the Harden quit game, where he officially just loafed around. I think Kyrie only had 4 points in that game too, and they lost the 12th straight. But it's just a long way from home. KD hasn't played against Sacramento since he was with the Warriors 3 years ago, so we'll see how they guard him. Harrison Barnes probably gets first crack at that, but I would much rather take a team, a well-balanced team in the Kings, who, let's face it, are playing like a real top 15 at least team. They're playing like a playoff team. They've won 6 of their last 7 with De'Aaron Fox. Their loss without him in Miami was close. They're 9-3 against the spread on the season, 7-0 against the spread with a normal 1 day of rest, 5-0 after a win. They're coming off an impressive win over the Warriors, where Sabonis 22 boards in that game. He's now finding his stride again. You talked about it the last time we picked the Kings. In his last 6 now, he's averaging 22, 12, and 7, getting to the line 8 times a game, shooting 57% from the floor. And the Nets, while they're number 1 in paid points right now, and doing a good job limiting that under Vaughn, they just got roasted for 37 by Anthony Davis and gave up 56 paint points to that Lakers team that can't shoot. They also gave up a good 3-point percentage, and they couldn't hit from 3. So the Kings have snipers, though. They've got great shooters. They're 5th in 3-pointers made right now. They got both Malik Monk and Kevin Porter playing off Fox and Sabonis. Great passers, great initiators. So it's pretty simple for me. If the spread is only 2 or 3, I'm taking the Kings all day at home here. There's a massive kind of rest advantage, and I think more overall talent. Durant might be the best player on the floor, but what do the Kings have the next best 4 players in this game at least?
Easy. Yeah, easy. That's sort of the difference in makeup of teams this year. It's like, how heavy are you at the top, and what do you have behind how heavy you are at the top? Are you winning because you're the Utah Jazz and you have just like 5 to 8 really good NBA players, or are you the Nets and you rely on one player especially right now to have a 35 to 40% usage rate for you to do anything, and that usage rate doesn't even include the amount just that he has the ball in his hands. So I would rather have a team full of wing players and a few stars, and that's what the Kings makeup is. I think it's definitely there's a few things that these teams do really differently, and a few things that they do really similarly. And it is, I'm speaking specifically about the Jacques Vaughn Nets, which it's definitely, there was a bit of a honeymoon phase. That loss to the Lakers, as you said, definitely raises some eyebrows. But that loss was sort of the way that the Nets are going to lose, and it looks worse because they scored 103 against the Lakers, who are better on defense, to be honest, and they gave up that 116. I think it's the way that they're losing. Like we were talking about you were talking about the things that they do well, things they don't do well. Well, AD just ate them alive, and really he didn't even really need to do anything around the outside of the paint. He had 18 boards in that game, a bunch of second chance points, and the fact that he shot better than, I think, like 65% from the field and like 75% in the paint. I looked at that game a lot, like, what the hell happened here? I remember all of that just from looking at it a few nights ago because I was just so confused, and that's really all it was. And if that's the recipe for success against this team, against the Kings, it cautions me a little bit to feel that comfortable about the Nets, just in this, or about the Kings being able to handle them, just from the standpoint that if the Nets 3-point defense has been a lot better, if their defense, the way that it's been constructed since Jacques Vaughn took over, is to slow things down and to not allow you to have those wide open shots that they were giving up earlier in the year, then I think that the Nets stand a lot better of a chance than we might give them. I do start feeling better about that under a little bit more that you were talking about. 226 in a game where the Kings, they're playing still pretty fast. Obviously they're the Kings, but it's not like that's all that they have is just De'Aaron Fox run and gun, and if he's not doing his thing well enough, then they're in trouble, right? They're still in the top 15 in terms of their pace, are the Kings, but at home as well, there's a bit more efficiency where you go, okay, if there's not going to be as many turnovers either, and the Nets can't get those points, the easier points, those points in the pace that you were talking about too, a lot of those in transition for them, then I think there's, that's where you lean Kings, because of the fact that if they're going to be that efficient on offense, and they're going to be able to, like I said, not turn the ball over that well, which is something they've done incredibly well in those last 4 games, which is why they're winning at the pace that they are, then yeah, I'll feel better about the Kings. But overall, man, I'm a little bit shook on this one. I think it's a fun game to talk about with the way that these two teams are sort of splitting, and I've been talking out of both sides of my mouth since I started speaking in this segment, which just shows you the sort of hesitancy that I have to lay money on either of them. Full transparency, I'm not. I really like that other game a lot better in terms of the Knicks and Jazz. I think there's a lot more reliability there, and what we can expect. I think there's just a little bit more influx, in that loss to the Lakers, giving up 116 points on the road for the Nets, is what gives me pause to even feel any kind of confidence in either them or that under, which is where I'd want to lean if I were going to bet on this game.
Yeah, that's fair. We're still in the information gathering stage. I think with the Nets, like I said, it's a 7-game sample size, and there's a lot of uncertainty just in the night-to-night effort you're going to get from this team now that they've kind of settled into their new regime. You look at the numbers, though. Yeah, I mean, I come back to the Kings being able to score either in the half court or in semi-transition. The Nets are 27th in opponents' three-point shooting. And at home, the Kings scoring the fourth highest percentage of their points off threes, which is strange. I mean, they're number one in 2-point percentage, but they're like bottom three in terms of their points scored inside the arc. So, I mean, maybe they could get something going there. But I do look at Durant having a big game here. Like I said, hasn't faced his team in 3 years. Mike Brown's defense is really funneling things inside the arc to the mid-range. That seems to be what they're built on, but they're dead last in opponents' shooting efficiency and 28th in paint points, 28th in 2-point percentage. So I think it's a mid-range game for KD to get a lot going and maybe bend that defense and get some dimes. So, I mean, maybe see a little preview of our player props there. If you don't want to bet on the result of this game, maybe bet on the stars showing out. But yeah, like I said, I want to wait and see what the pace and the defensive rating is like consistently for the Nets before I bet over or under. I do feel fine taking the Kings, though. I think they're kind of routinely undervalued in these spreads. Definitely nailed it with them beating the Lakers and transitive property. They beat the Lakers. Lakers beat the Nets. Let's go. They're at home. But more importantly, they're at home. Nets are on a tiring road trip here.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad you said that. And I know you said it sarcastically because transitive property by far exists less in the NBA than I would say any sport, even the NFL, which confuses the hell out of us because it's such a matchup-based sport. The NBA, it's not it's a matchup-based sport, less so than the NFL for sure. But it is who's playing, what point of the season is it? It's an 82 game season versus 8. Well, how many do they play now? 17 in the NFL, right? Like every week in the NFL, we're going, okay, we got 17 weeks to make our money on this sport. Let's get these bets in. The NBA, dude, is happening every night, right? So like when it's a 5-game slate, there's a bit of weirdness. This is just one that's a little bit of a stay away because we just rattled off like 15 different sort of categories of stats, game theories that could materialize here, and they're all conflicting. they all could go either way. This team doesn't give up points in the paint. This team scores all their points in the paint. They both give up a ton of 3-pointers and don't defend it well. One of them shoots more. I don't know. One of them has KD, right? Can Mike Brown's defense, it's the first year that we're really seeing it, like you said, can it sort of funnel KD? Are they going to let him go off for 38 and minimize what everybody else can do? Or are they going to try to shut him down and say, Royce O'Neal and Seth Curry and company, you guys need to beat us, right? Like, I still don't quite know. And that's why I don't feel comfortable enough with the stats and the sample size, everything we said, to maybe wager on it tonight. But we don't have to. We've got plenty more opportunity to, and we've got the Knicks Jazz game that we can feel good about tonight. So, Nate, let's go ahead and jump into your first play a prop for tonight.
Yeah, Memphis New Orleans game with Zion as a game time decision, so that's what we're waiting on for props there. Luka Doncic, though, his props are up, and he's facing the Clippers, which he loves to do. He's roasted them, as we know, in the playoffs, but last 4 regular season, 41 points per game, 10 rebounds, 8 assists, 42% usage, 41 minutes per game, ho-hum. You could say, oh, well, PG missed the last 2 when he averaged 48 points per game. But, he still had a solid game. The one game that was at LA in that span, I guess it was diminished. But then you go back where both PG and Kawhi active in March in Dallas in 21. Luka had 42, 9 assists, shot 57% from the floor. He's averaging nearly 6 threes per game at nearly 50% against this team. So if those guys are strong enough or rangy enough to keep him from getting to the rim, which he's been doing at will this season, he has been willing to step back on them. And the biggest thing here is the home road splits for Dallas as a team. I mean, first of all, they had some struggles here at Washington, at losing at Orlando. And now they're back home, and it's going to be a different story, especially for Luka this year, averaging 36 at home compared to 32 on the road. Still pretty impressive, but the efficiency is way better. 134 offensive rating at home versus 109 on the road. Getting to the free throw line 13 times per game. And in his last game here against Portland, he had a triple-double. He had 42 points, got to the line 18 times. He's just completely undeal-wittable, to steal a phrase. So, I mean, he's at 40.5 points in assists. You get minus odds there, minus 120. I don't hate it. 32.5 points is fine. he's pretty much you can tell he's banking on 35 in a win because that's only plus 190 at FanDuel. It's just like, yeah, what else? So you can get some juice 5 threes in a win at plus 630. I don't love that because he's getting to the rim more than he's shooting threes this year. But I do like the assists because LA on a back-to-back here. They tend to score more on a back-to-back and give up more dimes last year playing with tired legs. So, I mean, yeah, just the overall stat line for Luka, you expect at this point 50 points, rebounds, assists, which is where we're at.
Yep. Yeah, no, I mean, if you're taking Luka against the Clippers, I'm with you. There's some teams he just loves to just smash, and this is probably at the top of his list, right? So points, whatever. With him, it's all inflated because it's him and it's this year, and he came out the gate hot. So we're not sitting around waiting for Luka to get back into his playoff form if he's going to be there all season. I don't think there's going to be much of a letdown, and against this team and the Clippers, which I've been fading a bit here and there as well, feel pretty good about it. So. Another guy here, another point guard who playing above, I think took a little bit of a leap this year that we've been waiting for, De'Aaron Fox. And those Kings, and we talk about them in that game video versus the Nets. Not sure how comfortable and much we love this game. I know you like the Kings a bit more. We lean under, maybe. That's close to 50-50, so not much to get there. But De'Aaron Fox is doing his thing right now. 29.5 points and assists. It's minus 120 at DK. It's not, if you wanted to try to shop that and maybe even buy or sell a few things and get it to like 30.5 or something so you could get closer to even money. I understand that too. His last 5 since he sat out one game, first of all, I should say his averages on the season are above this 29.5. It's 25.5 points a game and 6 assists against every in all of the games that he's played this season. So I feel good about that. His last 5 since he sat a game, he's actually upped his numbers a bit to about 27 a game, 7.5 assists. His usage rate's up at about 29.5% in that time, shooting 55% from the field. Very crucially, 36% from 3, which is huge for him. 82% from the line is actually pretty good as well. He's had some seasons finishing set in the 70s. So keeping it above 80% for him is huge as he does get to the line. A pretty good amount, especially for a point guard. We know he loves to run and gun and gets about 5 a game, which is what you would like against Brooklyn. I like the assists as well because of the fact that Brooklyn does allow the 5th most assists per game to opposing point guards. Not for many other positions, to be honest. They've done pretty well against under Vaughn in terms of limiting assists, but not to opposing point guards specifically, where they allow about 23 points and 9 assists a game to opposing point guards. D Fox is getting about 36 minutes or so a game so far this season, or 33 rather, but still playing a bunch in those games that he needs. So he's the best clutch player in the NBA right now, Nate. I should also make that clear. De'Aaron Fox averaging the most points and has an incredible assist to turnover ratio in clutch time as well. Another reason you might lean Kings there with the way that he's been playing, taking care of the ball. And it's that shooting 5 threes a game, making nearly 2 of them. 1.9 for 5.1 from the 3-point line. That's what we've been waiting for him, is if you at least are worried that he can make an open 3 and he's shooting 37% from there, then everything else is going to come because not very many people can stay in front of him.
Yeah, I mean, the clutch scoring is key here. With basically a pickup line, you expect the Nets to get to a close one here and Fox to get his down the stretch. So, yeah, I like that pick just fine. Steer away from Sabonis, I think, because of how good the Nets have been limiting paint points, but at the same time, they just got shredded down low by the Lakers. So the one under we're going to take here, we kind of like under in this Jazz-Knicks game. The Knicks, at least their bigs know if they don't play defense, they're going to get yanked off the floor like RJ Barrett was on Sunday. And Lauri Markkanen, I mean, he tends to struggle against teams that are physical down low, that limit paint points. You look at his numbers recently after roasting Atlanta. He struggled against Washington and Philly, really struggled on the defensive end against Philly as Joel Embiid put up like a Wilt-like quadruple double basically against him. The Knicks are first in paint points on offense. So if he's not getting it done down low, we might not see as much of him from the Jazz here. At home, he's averaging 7 rebounds per game versus 9.5 on the road. He does score a little bit more at home. I do think the Jazz are due for some negative regression in terms of their shooting. Yeah. And he's shooting 60% at home thus far. So 27.5 points and rebounds. I want to get the rebounds in there because I don't think he's your typical big that can really muck it up with these Knicks bigs who are true rebounders. And the Jazz overall 27th in rebound rate So I like that better than 19.5 points on the under for marketing. I do think that that's a fine market though, but on the road, the Knicks are allowing 43 paint points, so that's the fourth lowest. And in 3 against Tibbs, the Tibbs Knicks, if you will, market is getting 11 points per game, granted in 28 minutes at a lower usage, but that's a long way to go to get you probably the 21 points you would need for him to get over this combined total.
Yeah, I think if we're leaning on under in this game, as we both are, at 230.5, you can still go under and have some guys get some stats because that's a very, very high total. But if you're going to lean under and you're going to look at where you think the Knicks, obviously the strength of their defense, Mitchell Robinson might be back tonight. He's been out for a bit. That definitely didn't help them, or maybe it did actually help them give up 145 points to the Thunder recently. I think it's going to be tightened up a bit. I mean, it's not going to be 2 games in a row like that. Let's put it this way: if the Jazz blow this team out today, the Knicks, the Fire Tibbs chants from the Knicks are going to be probably coming to the Garden pretty soon. So I do think there's a bit of a reason to have some pride in that Knicks defense and play a little bit better down low. So let's finish things off with one more over. I'm sticking to that Kings Nets game, talking about KD. Let's just talk about the 2 best players on each of these teams. We talk about Fox, now KD, 37.5 points and assists for that man as well. That's minus 105 because that's very, very high, and you're pretty much banking on him scoring close to 32 points or so. I think 5 to 6 assists is like what you expect from KD. If he gets you 7, 8, 9, then you feel good about it. But he's got to put up the points. I mean, he is the offense. We were looking earlier at what they are on their last 7 since Vaughn took over. When KD is off the floor, they are a -6 net rating. Everybody else, when they're off the floor, the worst is still positive, right? Royce O'Neal, when he's off the floor, there's still a positive net rating for the Nets. Every other player besides KD can come off the floor. They'll still have a positive net rating. KD comes off, it drops to -6. So that tells you playing 33 or so minutes a game in that time frame with a 32% usage rate. This is all under Jacques in those last 7 games, 29 points a game, 6.5 assists a game. You look at a few of the most recent ones, 11 dimes versus the Wizards, 12 dimes versus the Knicks in a triple-double when they blew them out. He didn't even have to play in a lot of that fourth quarter. 31, 9, and 7 versus LA. So 7 dimes at least in all those games. Sac, they're not good on defense pretty much everywhere. They're a little bit better in terms of limiting assists, but that's also because they just don't have very many good one-on-one defensive matchups for you. There's no stoppers on their team that you're like, oh, avoid going up against this guy. It's like, no, let's just attack every single person on their team from every position. And that's why I don't think they're really specifically bad against any one spot. Not that it matters. KD is his own position. And we talk about it in the game video. The way that this team is playing defense against a 3 is horrible, but they're a little bit better in the paint. But it's also that 2-point mid-range that you talk about, Mike Brown funneling that defense and really trying to push people off of the 3-point line, where KD's happy to shoot it from wherever you want. If you're going to give him that 3-pointer at a rate of allowing your opponents to shoot like 38% from 3, which are the Kings right now, then I'll take it. But if you want to push him right inside for a one-handed 17-foot pull-up, I'm also pretty fine with that for him to get those 32 points or so. And then you could throw the assists on there happily so that you get that minus 105 instead of the points, which are, closer to minus 115 for him.
Yeah, you only need 31 points for him to get that point total, but I do like adding the peripheral stats because I think Mike Brown's going to have a scheme in place to deal with Durant. I mean, him being such a central part of this offense, and it might be kind of like force him inside, then try to make him give the ball up. So he might be kicking out to like 25 threes tonight. And if the Nets hit like 9 of those, that's still 9 assists for Durant. So, I mean, the ball's just going to be playing in his hands. Everything's going to go through him. So that's why I would want to combine the assists with it. I think that's a good call.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, it's the same concept as Fox, who's got the ball in their hands for most of this game and is making things happen in a game that we'll see. We're neither of us are probably going to lay anything on tonight's game. We are going to have some fun watching it. Nate leans Kings a little bit. I'm leaning Fox and Durant at the very least. So that's all the time we have for you guys in this one. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us. We'll be back each and every weekday of this regular season for you with some game line videos and those player props that we've got for you. So until we see you next, happy betting.